Hi, this is Will again from Sac Brick Builders, and now it's part 3 of moving parts. Now, the second LEGO Ideas project that I wanted to smush together as 3 models was my UFO Uh-Oh. And the reason why I even built this was because I thought of the design challenge of how do I make something rotate as well as move up and down. Because if you think about it, if you have something gripping the axle, as soon as you move it up and down, it should theoretically lose connection with the teeth that have to turn the central axle. So I had to really think about what do I need to do to make both of those actions work in the same type of model. And after a number of nights of thinking of it, I came up with a solution. And thankfully, because I built the roller coaster, I discovered a piece that made this possible. So let's take a look at the inner workings of this thing. Now here's what we're doing. We have the control. Now I spread everything out, so this is actually one stud wider than what's in the actual model. And this is, of course, higher than the UFO. And this is just to give you a reference to see how it turns. So the key piece is actually sandwiched in between these modified 2x3 plates. It's this little red gear right here. This is an 8 wide gear, dual face, but its key properties is that it has no friction. That means it'll still turn the axle, but it doesn't grip the axle. So if I let it go, it just falls. That movement allows me to have a gear that can turn without being bothered by the up and down movement of the axle. So, in order to make that gear turn, I decided the easiest way to do it was to use a worm gear, which is actually the other gear that is frictionless. So you actually have to put spacers if you're going to be using one and you want it to stay in place. As for the lifting and raising and lowering, I knew I needed some sort of beam or lift arm. And to make sure it didn't catch, I used a little voodoo ball thing that can hit the end of be put at the end of an axle. Now to make this raise and lower, I had to fix a location on this side so that it has a pivot point. And then I had to use not one, but a couple of different connections just to absorb the excess movement. Because if we look at this side, we have the crank. That gives our initial movement. We have this lift arm that gets us all the way down to where we need to be connecting into our main platform. But then we need another connector in here which can absorb the side-to-side movement as well as the back and forth movement of our plane to absorb and disperse it, because we don't actually need any of that excess movement. But the end result is this plane that raises and lowers, the gear that turns, and if we can see at the top, the little spokes move round and round. And of course, it doesn't matter which way direction you turn it, you can turn it the other way to have more control. But those are the inner workings of UFO Uh-Oh.